Does anyone think about Hughie first when we talk about the boys? Well, if they do, this video's for them. And if they don't, this video's for them especially, because they really should. In many ways, Hughie is the strongest character in this universe, because his heart is always in the right place. Physicality is also part of those ways, especially after he got a taste of that sweet green goo, because there are things about Hughie's physiology that you might not be aware of. But as always, we've got your backs. So let's dive right in. These are 14 physiological facts about Hughie Campbell that will blow your mind. Who even is Hughie Campbell? Although they're the same person, there are some major differences between Hughie Campbell from Amazon and Wee Hughie from Dynamite Entertainment. TV Hughie is an ordinary American kid of Scottish-Irish descent who lives with his dad and has a retail job in an electronics store. His parents got divorced when he was young. His mother abandoned the family, we don't know why, and his father became a depressed shell of a man for a while after the divorce. He stopped fighting for himself and started living like a passive passenger, a pattern previous generations of Campbell men adhere to as well. This gave Hughie a deep-seated fear of turning out the same way. His escape became superheroes, and we see several action figures, posters, and comic books in Hughie's room. Comic Hughie was a full-blooded Scottish man whose parents adopted him. He wasn't a comic book fan per se, but he did love conspiracy theories, which turned out to be quite useful during his time as one of the boys. What ties together both versions is their insecurity. They're both terrified of fighting and borderline obsessed with doing the right thing. Comic Hughie is more paranoid and uptight than TV Hughie, but this shared insecurity is what makes their latter body changes hit so hard. What single moment destroyed his normal life? 3 key figures are responsible for all the changes in Hughie Campbell's life: his girlfriend Robin, her soup murderer, and William Butcher. In the TV show, Robin is accidentally killed by A-Train mid-run, who was high on Compound V at the time, leaving Hughie holding her severed hands and a dismissive apology from one of his favorite heroes. In the comics, the murder took place at a carnival where Hughie was talking about pink aliens before Robin told him that she loved him. A-Train was chasing a supervillain, not high, when he killed Robin, and he didn't care about civilian casualties either. He told Hughie to get out of the way after turning Robin into a statistic, and then let the paramedics handle his emotional trauma. And while Comic Hughie was never too hot on soups, for TV Hughie, this moment shatters both his perception of them and his sense of safety. In both versions, Vought immediately tries to buy Hughie's silence with a small cash amount and an NDA. And in both versions, Robin's death becomes the fuel for every risky, body and life-altering choice they make. What was going on inside his head before any of this? The two Hughie's were always presented as intelligent, anxious, empathetic problem solvers. The main obstacle for them was accepting their minds as the exceptional processors they were, because they were constantly being buried underneath their insecurities. In the comics, when the boys are investigating yet another murder caused by soups, it's Hughie who steps in and discredits their first line of inquiry with his knowledge of conspiracy theories. Seasoned investigators like Butcher and MM get stuck on sexuality as motive because that's the usual pattern. Wee Hughie ignores it because he knows crimes of passion aren't always what they seem. In the show, Hughie uses his advanced knowledge of technology to act as the glasses of the boys. He's the one who figures out Translucent's weakness to electricity before even Butcher can, and he uses it to electrocute him and knock him out so the boys can put the screws to him. Neither version of Hughie ever had a reason to go beyond a passive existence before Robin's murder, which is why they think they're duds. That changed in the aftermath because he finally had enough. What did Compound V actually do to his body in the comics? In the comics, Butcher injects Hughie with Compound V during their very first mission, without warning him or getting his consent. It feels like a chloroform tactic, which will become relevant soon enough, so keep that in mind. And initially, it pisses him off so much that he walks away. Then he comes back and joins the mission because he remembers what his true goal is. And that gives us our first real look at the enhanced physiology of Wee Hughie. The V permanently upgrades his strength and durability, making him strong enough to punch a hole through his soup's chest accidentally, while still looking like an unremarkable layman. He didn't mean to go through Blarney Cox's body. He just didn't know how much stronger he'd become after taking the permanent V. Show Hughie takes Temp V and has a similar moment during the boys' mission to Russia when he punches through a Russian operative. But that guy was a human. Comic Hughie was giving soups the through-and-through treatment from day one, and TV Hughie's no slouch either. Anyone that's capable of holding down Homelander for close to a minute, even if that's with help, has to be insanely strong. And Temp V works like regular V, even if it only lasts for 24 hours. But enhanced strength is about the only similarity, because the Comic Hughie and TV Hughie have a whole different litany of side effects to worry about. How was V24 slowly killing him from the inside? In the comics, all the boys have taken V and received a general boost to their physical stats. In the show, only Butcher and Hughie take Temp V and receive unique abilities. Butcher's Temp V ability was gaining laser eyes like his arch nemesis, and Hughie's was teleporting. Each person using Temp V seems to manifest powers that fit their personalities, and we'll elaborate on that in a few moments. Because while a single dose of V24 gives Hughie teleportation, super strength, super hearing, and a lot of other cool abilities, it also means the countdown on his lifespan with each usage. Temp V was an experimental formula when Queen Maeve stole it and gave it to Butcher. It gives people power, yes, but if used multiple times, it causes progressive and fatal damage to the human anatomy, which ultimately leads to the development of incurable cancer. This means that every power-up quietly shortened Hughie's life, and there's no guarantee that he doesn't have anything to worry about. The report on V24's side effects says that between 3 to 5 doses is lethal to consumers, and Hughie's taken 4 of them. While he isn't taking V24 anymore, he also hasn't done a medical checkup ever since. We haven't seen any visible evidence of him suffering from a progressive or terminal disease, but the possibility exists. Plus, he was kind of on track to taking his own life had he continued using Temp V, because Butcher only took 2 more doses than he did, and he's got inoperable brain cancer now. But this brings up another interesting question. Why can he teleport naked, but not with his clothes? Teleportation is a popular superpower in works of fiction. In many franchises, teleportation uses a special device. Just look at Cecil Stedman wasting billions of taxpayer dollars to save time in Invincible. But you know what makes Hughie's unique? Whenever he teleports, he moves only himself and whoever he's physically touching, leaving everything else behind. Compound V rewrites the genetic code of its users to give them their ability. In Hughie's case, that rewrite changed how his cells interact with space, allowing him to traverse small to medium distances whenever he clenches his butt cheeks really tight. But you can't rewrite the cellular structure of an inorganic object by injecting yourself with V. That's why Hughie's teleportation doesn't extend to inanimate material. Cecil keeping his clothes on makes sense because he's using an externalized mechanism to teleport himself. And even when a device isn't involved, the costumes teleporters wear are never left behind because teleportation users aren't usually in adult-only franchise. This makes Hughie's teleportation the most realistic portrayal as an innate ability. It also makes his power the perfect metaphor, because at its core, teleportation is the ability to run away without anyone ever noticing you were there in the first place. It personifies Hughie's former flight response while giving him powers that represent his fight mentality at the time of consumption. Also, you'll see many websites claiming that his teleportation is a reaction to his former enemy A-Train's super speed. But if that was the case, why did his dad get the exact same ability after taking permanent V? Powers in this world are genetic as well as personality, so while Hughie's teleportation might be useful against speedsters, it's more of a reflection of who he is rather than what he wants to do. How durable is he really compared to an actual suit? After taking Temp V, Hughie becomes far more durable than your average human being. He's thrown across rooms, he withstands a full blast from Starlight, and even takes a few punches from Soldier Boy, who is the prototype for Homeland. But none of these attacks were killing blows, and while Hughie didn't incur major damage from them, they still caused him considerable pain. His durability is definitely enhanced, and he probably could bend a gun in half and tank bullets. If we had to guesstimate this using a scale, he's likely on par with several students from Godolphin University, and that's a SOUP exclusive university. But he's nowhere near as durable as Soldier Boy or Homelander, and that actually makes his innate ability even more useful. But all that glitters isn't gold, and Hughie learns that lesson the hard way when it comes to Temp V usage. How fast does his body heal, and what happens when the V wears off? After injecting himself with V24, Hughie's body undergoes a massive transformation in a really short period of time. Compound V is not a replication of Wolverine's healing factor, but it might as well be that. His arm, which was broken by Kimiko to give him an excuse to get away from Vicky, heals almost immediately after the injection. It induced a burst-style regenerative factor that is entirely dependent on the drug, which also gives him all the abilities we've discussed so far. His experience with Temp V is what gave him the idea that the real stuff would kill his dad and bring him out of his coma. But Permanent V alters the gene code permanently, whereas Temp V only does it for a single day. When the dose wears off, so do all of Hughie's abilities, and they're replaced by side effects that look a lot like withdrawal symptoms. Migraines, nausea, muscle spasms, discolored mucus, and projectile vomiting. All of these happen to consumers of V24 after the drug wears off. And while we don't see Hughie going through them all, we can tell you without hesitation that he experienced at least some of them. And the worst effects of using Temp V weren't exhibited by his body. They were exhibited by his mind. What did the V do to his mind? not just his muscle. Hughie's first hit of V24 reminded us of Requiem for a Dream. You could see his pupils dilate, his heart rate increasing, the ecstasy on his face. That scene where he punches through a Russian soldier and looks at his bloody arms, smiling like an idiot, tells us all we need to know. Temp V gives him an adrenaline rush of power and control, and he immediately wants more of it because he's never felt this way before. He's used to being the one always in need of saving, never the one doing the saving. So when he assists Butcher in Russia, or when he gets Annie out of a pickle, it only reinforces his desire for Temp V. It becomes the cement that fills the psychological hole left in his mind by Robin's death, his mother's abandonment, and years of feeling useless next to Soups and Stud. And it's very clear that Hughie's getting addicted to this feeling. Annie tells him not to take it. MM tells him not to take it. Hell, even Butcher, who uses everyone around him, tells Hughie not to take Temp V. And while that's mostly superficial, he wouldn't have said that to anyone else. Hughie's last use of Temp V occurs without anyone's knowledge, and that's the moment where he goes from being a regular guy to being an addict. What's sad is that him getting addicted to Temp V is totally believable, because his whole life he's spent as inferior. Now he has the chance to be a superior for a change, and he doesn't want to stop. It's no coincidence that the side effects of a single dose play out quite similarly to heroin withdrawal, because that's what this drug is to Hughie. It's answering the deepest question his inferiority complex keeps asking, and it takes Annie showing him the full report on what will happen to him if he doesn't stop to get Hughie to finally stop. Season 3, Hughie became a toxic man for far longer than we could have expected, and while that is understandable, both it and his temporary addiction cannot be justified. What's worse is Hughie doesn't need the drug at all, because his true physiological edge has always been inside him. What can he actually do without any powers at all? Even fully unpowered, Hughie is the team's most technically capable member. He figured out Translucent's electricity weakness, something Butcher admits he wouldn't have realized even if a long time had passed by. He helped the Frenchie build the cage that held Translucent, and also covered his warehouse with shielding foil that blocked the transmission from his Vought-installed tracker. He hacked Popclaw's devices with his technological know-how, and gave the boys enough material on her to blackmail her into cooperating with them. And his deduction of Mindstorm's address, based on the pills he uses to treat his bipolar disorder, is not one that any of the boys could have come up with. Hughie bluffed his way into accessing classified files at the Red River Institute by keeping Ezekiel silent by claiming they had sex at a private soup club. And while we haven't even mentioned the many times he's done covert operations with the boys, including one within Seven Tower itself, it's clear to us that Hughie's physiology always included a genuinely rare brain, which is not a compensation prize, but rather an actual weapon. He doesn't need powers to beat his competition. He can literally outthink them. But that doesn't mean thinking is all he does, because how did a guy who couldn't hold a gun become someone who slits throats? Hughie's evolution from a panicky geek to a legit cutthroat killer is as real as Ryan Rain. He started his journey as a rambling tech operator who would always look for ways to avoid a fight because he wasn't strong enough. By season 4, he was backing up Kimiko on missions he wouldn't have thought he was capable of participating. When Kimiko goes after Shining Light herself, she teaches Hughie how to use a drawer and box cutter as a makeshift shield in dagger combat. Hughie ends up fatally slitting a Shining Light member's throat on purpose while Kimiko is down, and the spray of blood across his face doesn't faze him at all. In fact, his face looks more determined than ever, which is a complete departure from season 1 Hughie, who couldn't handle Robin's death and had nightmares about her blood. His fighting style never becomes polished or trained, to be fair. Hughie's most physical moments come when he's desperate and needs to improvise. But that in itself is a character statement about how violence reshapes people. Hughie had probably never fired a gun before joining Butcher's crew, but now he can unload a clip on a target mostly accurately. And when he lets go of his thoughts, he can go toe-to-toe with MM, who was a heavyweight champion in the comics, mind you. What are the real weaknesses that even his enemies exploit? While he's transformed as a person, Hughie is still a person at the end of the day, and his weaknesses are more apparent than others because he's not very good at hiding. Most of it comes from his psychological weakness and his abandonment issues. While Hughie has improved a lot, there's really no telling when he can grow a conscience or become self-conscious, which in this business equates to an early grave. Starlight/Annie is the one person he'd die for without giving it a second thought, and that's something his enemies are well aware of as well. But Hughie's biggest weakness is actually he himself, because before anyone can sabotage his efforts, he does it for them. When his dad was in a coma, he thought that giving him Compound V would save his life. Hughie's a smart guy. He knows what Temp V did to him, and we're sure he read the circular on why V is never injected within adult subjects. But he did it anyway because he wanted to save his dad, and in the end, he had to put him down. The V might have woken up Hughie Sr., but it also gave him dementia, which turned him into a public safety risk. We'd say it's ironic that the one thing that made him stronger is also the same thing that exposes his weaknesses, but that's often how these situations play out, you know? And without Temp V, he's back to being a normie, which is an obvious weakness in a world full of soups. Unless he butchers up and takes permanent V, or he does what his original counterpart did. Is the comics version of Hughie even the same person biologically? Biologically speaking, TV Hughie and comic Hughie are completely different people. In the comics, Hughie is a short, bald Scottish man living in Scotland who Butcher recruits and brings to America. He gets a permanent V injection on his first day as a boy, and that change will live with him forever. Wee Hughie doesn't get the cool/embarrassing teleportation gig, but he does get strength and endurance that allow him to kill a member of the Seven. While he pays tribute to A-Train after his death in Season 5, in the comics, he's the one who kills A-Train by kicking his head off like a football. Also, spoiler alert, you might want to skip ahead 30 seconds, but Hughie is the boy who fights Butcher off and wins. Frenchie, MM, and Kimiko can't stop his murderous rampage, but Hughie does, despite getting severely injured himself. The biology of the two versions of Hughie reflect their similar yet different character arcs. Comic Hughie is the permanently upgraded everyman whose powers reflect the idea that we all have something that makes us special. We just need to embrace that part of us. And TV Hughie's powers are a cautionary tale that deliver the same message of embracing your authenticity, but also shows us the massive price tag for taking shortcuts like V24. How did he pull off the only kill of a Seven member by a regular boy? Translucent's death wasn't dumb luck. It was a systematic revelation of the lengths Hughie is capable of going to when he finally stops overthinking things. He was the one who used Translucent's carbon-based invisibility powers to facilitate his capture after all. While brainstorming how to get rid of him before the Seven figures out he's been taken, Frenchie realizes he needs to bypass Translucent's indestructible skin and attack his squishy internal organs. He sticks a lump of C4 up his butt, because the soup's exterior might be hard as a diamond, but his interior is as soft as any other human being. But having Hughie pull the trigger on him is the real masterclass here, because the juxtaposition between rock-hard exteriors and squishy interiors is a metaphor for Hughie's entire journey. If he was the same soft guy that easily believed whatever someone else told him, he'd have let Translucent walk away after he managed to escape his cage. Instead, Hughie made his heart strong as a diamond and pressed the detonator that sent bits of Translucent flying in every direction. To this day, Hughie remains the only member of the boys to have directly and intentionally killed a member of the Seven, and it didn't happen because of strength. It happened because of wit and determination, which are just as much a part of Hughie's physiology as anything else. Having said that, this is all we've got for you today. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and ring that bell icon so you don't miss more boys content. We will see you guys real soon with yet another video. So stay safe, have a nice day, and don't forget to stay marvelous.